Now I'm gonna use the same cube that we created, so let's delete this one, and I'm gonna duplicate this cube, Control D, and move it under the cloner tree, and here we have the cubes. Let's go ahead and change the height maybe a little bit more, maybe the radius. So now let's go ahead and apply an effector on the clone tree too. So let's go to General and click on Spawn Linked Effector. We have one effector on that now. And now we're gonna select this effector, and under the type we're gonna change it to unbound again. But this time I'm gonna apply a force on it. I can apply orientation force, and this will orient the cubes. As you see, we have nice animation on it. You can increase the animation by increasing this value. And we can go to the mode and add noise field on it too. So let's add maybe 5 by 5 by 5, or maybe more. Let's see if I set that to 20. I think we need to increase it more. Let's set it to 40 by 40. And we can go to the forces, and we can add a curve noise on it. This will add nice animation on it too. And we can go to the cloner and go to range and select that, enable it. We can go to the scale uniform and add random scale to it, maybe 2, and this one 0.5. And now we can change the color by selecting the cube. You can go to materials, and we can change the primary color. As you see, because we applied a bevel, it's changing a little bit differently than I showed you before. You can click on use single material. This will apply this color on the entire face, but we can make it more interesting by changing each face color. Let's set this one maybe green, and this one maybe blue, and this one let's set it this color, purple, and maybe white, and let's see this one, maybe set it to red. And here we have random color on the faces. So let's go ahead and select the effector. The problem is we can't update the orientation forces when the sequencer begins the animation. So anyway, I think I'm gonna change the radius of the cylinder a little bit more, like that. And we can rotate the cloner tree. We can create an animation on that. So let's go to the first frame, and then I'm gonna key the rotation for the cloner tree, and I'm gonna move it somewhere here and change the rotation. Let's set it to maybe 180 and set a key. And here we have nice animation on it too. We can move the keys. Let's see which one was. This was the cloner tree. So let's go ahead and select that and move it there to extend the time. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. Before you continue watching the course, I want to mention that I uploaded a section about 3D modeling in Unreal Engine to avoid jumping to other 3D applications when you want to create simple 3D models. So if you want to learn about 3D modeling in Unreal Engine, you can go to the last section and watch it. So see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we will learn how to use masking in motion design. Masking shapes or texts in motion graphics is a very common method to hide or reveal shapes, text, images, or videos. Motion Design has tools to do masking, but it has some bugs when you try to use the masking with texts. This is because we are using the first version of Motion Design and it's in beta and has some bugs. If you are watching this video in the future and you have the updated version of Unreal Engine 5.4 or later, you may not see these issues. So I wanted to mention this before we start using masks. So here I have empty scene with the default light and the camera on it. So let's take a look how to create masking on shapes. So I'm gonna click on arrow and drag that in the viewport, and I'm gonna go ahead and create a rectangle and create it there. So now I can select the arrow and I can go to operator task, and under modifiers, if you click there, you can see here we have mask apply and mask set. So basically we want to reveal the arrow, so that's why I'm gonna click on mask set. So now it's hidden, right? And now I'm gonna select the rectangle and go again to modifier, and then I'm gonna click to apply. So basically we're gonna reveal the arrow using the rectangle. So now if I move the rectangle, we should see the arrow, as you see, and everything works fine because we are working on shapes. But if we use this method on text, Unreal Engine will crash. So anyway, I will show you later how to fix the issue of crashing with texts. So now I can go ahead and change the color of the rectangle. Let's go to material and pick a color, let's say red. And now if I drag that, you can see the arrow is red now. So you can change the color from here. And you can animate the rectangle to reveal the arrow. For example, I can come to the general and set a key here and move it somewhere there and move the rectangle on the arrow and set a key, and here we revealed the shape. So let's go ahead and delete the rectangle and the arrow. Yes. And now if I go to actors and click on the texts, and let's call it masking, and let's change the font to something interesting. Let's set it to impact, and let's go ahead and create the rectangle again. And this time if I select the text and go to operator stack, and if I go to add modifiers, if you click on the mask, Unreal Engine may crash. So maybe in the future, if you are using the new versions of Unreal Engine 5.4, you might not see this issue. So now I will show you how to fix this issue. First of all, we need to convert the text to a static asset. So I can come to the add modifier again and click on dynamic mesh converter. And now I'm gonna click on convert to static mesh asset. And I'm gonna save it in the meshes folder. Let's call it text static mesh sm text and save it. Already exists, so let's set the number to here, static mesh text 2. So now I'm gonna delete the text here, and now let's go to the mesh folder and drag it here, and I'm gonna scale it. And now because we converted the text to a static mesh, you can see we no longer have the parameters in the details. So everything here is changed because this is now a static mesh. And now I can select that and go to add modifier and click on mask set. As you see, everything works fine and we didn't get any crash. So now I can select the rectangle and go again to modifier, and then I'm gonna click on mask apply. And now if I move it, as you see, we are revealing the text. Now the problem with this method is you can't change the text because now it's static mesh. So this is one way to fix the issue. So the other way, let's go ahead and select, let's delete both of them. So the other way is to go to actor again and let's select the text and let's call it again masking. So if you go to the style, you can see here we have the translucency style. So I can come over here and change that to gradient mask. And now I can control the masking from the mask offset. You can see now I can mask the text using this parameter. And you can animate that too. You can change it from right to left. And you have the custom too. So these are two methods to use instead of using the masking from the operator task on the texts, because we have some bugs in Unreal Engine 5.4. So these are alternative methods to use the masking on texts. In the next lesson, we're gonna continue. Previously, we used animators to animate shapes and texts, but with Text Actor, we have more tools to create variety of animations. So let's take a look at that. I'm gonna start with creating a text actor. Let's go ahead and change the text from the text. Let's call it motion design. And let's go ahead and change the font to maybe impact. And I'm gonna change the color in the style, and I'm gonna change the color to maybe orange color. And now let's go ahead to the geometry, and here you can see we have the outline. Basically this will create outline around the text. So let's go ahead and increase the line thickness from here. And now let's go to layout. Here you can see we have the alignment. We can align the text. And here you can see we have the kerning. I can increase the space between the letters. And I have the line spacing. This will do nothing because we have just one line. And we have the word spacing. This will increase the space between the words. And here is the interesting part. We have the text 3D character. First we have the location. We can animate the location of the letters. We can animate the scale. And finally we have the rotate. So these options is just for the text actor. You will not see these options if you create the 2D shapes. So let's take a look first at the location. Let's scroll down. First we need to enable that. So if I click on enable, and you can see we have the location progress. So if I increase the location progress, you can see we have the animation on the text. This is going back and forth. It's animated on x-axis. The reason is because the x set to 100. So for example, if I set the z to 100 or more, now you can see it's animated on z. So now if I increase the progress, you can see we have the animation on z. Of course, you can animate this parameter to create the animation. And here we have interesting parameter which called location range. Basically this will smooth the position between the letters. So if you want to make hard transaction between them, you can decrease this value. So now if I increase the location, you can see we have hard transaction between the letters. And if you want to blend them more, you can increase the location range. So basically it will blend the position between the letters. And here you can see we have the location order. We can set that from the center. The animation will start from the center. And we have to center. And we have the opposite too. So let's go back to normal. And now let's go to the sequencer. Let's delete this rectangle. Let's go to the first frame. And I'm gonna move the text down, maybe somewhere here. And let's go ahead and set that to 0 first and move it down. And now I'm gonna set this one maybe to 200 to move the text up when I change the location progress. So if I increase that, as you see we get the 200 on Z. So let's set it maybe to 400. Maybe 350 or 300 to set it at the center. So now let's move the location progress to 0 and set a key here. And now I'm gonna move the time slider to maybe to 30 and set this one to 100 and set a key. So now if I play that, you can see we have the animation. Nice, right? Let's go ahead and increase the range a little bit, maybe to 60. And you can control the location range here to create different styles if you want. As you see, we get really nice motion blur on the text too. And you can change the order, maybe to center, it's up to you. Let's set that maybe to opposite. So next we have the scale. Let's go ahead and disable that. Let's stop it first and disable it. And remove the track from here. And let's go ahead and bring the text back so we can take a look at the scale parameters. So next we have the scale. So let's go ahead and expand that and enable the scale. So now if I change the scale progress, you can see we have animation on the scale. And we have the scale range. This is the same, the location range. You can blend between the animation. And here we have the scale begin. For example, if I set the scale on X to 0 and set this one to 1, so basically I am locking the scale on Y. So now if I increase that, you can see the scale on Y is not changing. Just the scale on Z is changing. And if I want to lock the Z, I can come to Z and set it to 1. So you can see the scale on Z is locked, so it's not changing anymore. So you can lock them based on their axis. And we have the scale in. This is the end scale. So when I set the progress to 100, the scale will be 1, 1, 1. If I set the Y to maybe 0.5, and now at 100 progress, the scale will be 0.5. So this is the end animation scale. So let's go ahead and animate the scale too. Let's go at frame maybe 0 and set this one to 0 and set a key. And let's go to frame 60 and set it to 100 and set a key here. And now let's go ahead and play that. We have the animation. I can change the begin scale. Let's set this one to 0. And now we have the animation. And we can lock maybe the Y and play it. I think the timing is a little bit slow. And here we have. Let's go ahead and change the scale range to maybe 5. So you can see we have nice motion. We can reverse that. Go to opposite. The animation will start from the right. We have the from center. Feel free to change these parameters to your liking. So let's take a look at the rotate. Let's go ahead first and disable that and go to rotation. And let's enable the rotate. So let's go ahead and delete this track from here. Select the text. And if I increase the rotation progress, you can see the letters are rotated. We didn't disable the scale, so let's go ahead and disable that. And here you can see we have the rotation on the letters. And I can increase the rotation range like before. And let's go to 0 and set this one to 0 and set a key. And let's go maybe to frame 50 and set it to 100 and set a key. And now we have animation on the rotation. And you can change the rotation begin. As you see, it begins at rotation minus 90 degree on Y. And the end is 0, 0. And I can change that. I can rotate it on Z. So let's set this one to 0 and this one to minus 90. And now we have the rotation on Z. So as I said, these parameters are just for the text. You will not see these parameters when you create the 2D shapes. So this is just related to the text. In this series of lessons, we're gonna take a look how to create topography animation in Unreal Engine 5.4. Although motion design is new, but it has the tools you need to create topography animations. And remember, everything here is in real time. There is no caching or rendering. You can see everything you create in real time. And this is what makes it a powerful tool for motion designers. We're gonna start create the first text and then animate it in the sequencer. We're gonna use motion design animation presets to speed up the process of tweaking animation curves, like using ease in or ease out presets. After that, you're gonna learn how to use gradient masking to hide or reveal the text. After we finish animating everything, we're gonna use the character transform to animate each letter separately. So let's get started. Now let's go ahead and create the first text animation. So I'm gonna start with the text actor, and then let's go to text and type motion. And I'm gonna change the font to maybe impact, and then in the layout I'm gonna increase the space between the letters, something like that. Let's move it to the left a little bit. And now let's go ahead and create the light and the camera spawn, and now I'm gonna animate that on Z. So let's select it and move it down outside the safe area, and then I'm gonna go to frame 0, and then I'm gonna key the location. So let's set a key. I'm gonna delete the keys on X and Y. And now let's select it again and go to frame maybe 40 and move it up somewhere there. And let's go ahead and set a key. And now we have very basic animation. We have some presets in the selection tab. As you see, I don't see anything because we need to select both keys. So if I select both of them, we have some presets here. So if you click there, you can see we have some presets. For example, if you hover over this icon, you can see there is a preview of the animation. As you see at the bottom, the point moving based on the curve. So this is just a visualization for the animation presets. Of course, you can do these animations in the curve editor too. And I want to mention that these presets works just on the location and rotation and the scale. Maybe in the future Unreal will be updated and they may work on other parameters. For example, if you want to animate the transparency or a color, you can't use these presets. So they just work on the transforms. So let's go ahead and select one of them. Maybe let's select this one. And here we have the animation. And if you go to the curve editor, the curve is updated for you. As you see, we have the same curve here. You can change the curve from here too. If you select the tangent, you can adjust it from here too, or you can go to the curve editor here to adjust it too. Let's go ahead and change the color. Let's go to style, and I'm gonna change it maybe to orange, and click OK. And now I wanna pause the animation few frames. For example, let's see frame 40 to frame maybe 50. I'm gonna set key on Y because I wanna animate it on Y. So let's go ahead and set a key there on Y and move it maybe to frame 80 and move it there and set a key. I think we need to move it more, so let's select both keys and move it a little bit more to give it some time. So now we can select both keys and go to presets, and I'm gonna select the back. So if you hover over it, you can see how the animation will behave. At the bottom you can see the point. So let's go ahead and select that. So now the text will go back a little bit. This will give us nice anticipation, and then it will start the animation. So let's see that. Nice. And now let's go ahead and collapse the group. Now let's go ahead and click on rectangle and create one rectangle here. And if you come over here, you can see we have the align actor. So if you click on that and you click on this icon, this will stretch the rectangle to fill the safe area. So you can see it's just a shortcut. So now I'm gonna animate the rectangle. So let's go ahead and move it outside the safe area somewhere here. And I want to cover the motion at this moment when the animation starts. So I'm gonna start the animation at this moment, maybe at frame 75. We may come back and change it later. So let's go ahead and set keys. Let's go ahead and delete the keys on X and on Z2. You can delete the parameters too, we don't need them. So now after a certain time I wanna bring it back. Let's set to 0 and set a key. Let's see how it will look like. Okay, great. Let's see it in slow motion. Nice. So now I want to bring the rectangle in front of the camera, because if I go ahead to the perspective, we are working in 3D space, right? And because we don't have keys on the X, so we can move it just slightly to the front to cover the text. So now let's go back to the camera and see the animation. So in the next lesson we're gonna continue. Now we're gonna create the next text and mask it using the gradient mask. First of all, I'm gonna duplicate this text, Control and D, and hit yes. And let's go ahead and delete all the keys on it and hit delete. Let's make some room here. So here I have the next text. So I'm gonna move it up somewhere there and I'm gonna match it on it. You don't have to be perfect in that because we're gonna change the text. So let's go to the text and change it to design. And let's change the color so we can see it better. Let's set it to a gray color for now. We're gonna change it later to a black. So I am setting the gray color just to see it on the black background. So here we have the text. I want to mask it at this moment here. So let's go ahead and move it there. And remember, we don't have any keys on it till now. So at this moment, I want to mask it. I can come to the translucency style and I'm going to change it to gradient mask. So now I can control the mask as you see from here. But I want to reverse that, so let's go ahead and make it right to left. And if I set it to 0, now it's completely hidden. So we're gonna animate this parameter. And if I set a key here, at frame maybe 83, and then let's move it somewhere there, and I'm gonna set it to 1, and set a key. As you see, the orange text is coming in front of the plane. I don't know, for some reason I am keep pushing that to the front, so just push the plane to the front of the camera a little bit. And for the gray text, we're gonna push it in front of the rectangle too, like that. Let's check if we have any keys except on Y. Yes. For some reason it keeps showing up in front of the plane, so Anyway, maybe it's a bug. So now if I go ahead and play that, you can see we have nice masking. So as you see, because we animated the masking, now we are showing the text. And you can come, of course, to the text, and in the style you can change the smoothness between them. If you want to make the transaction smoother or harder. So here we have it. Now let's go ahead and change it to black. So in the next lesson we're gonna continue. Now let's go ahead and create the third text animation. As you see in the scene, the rectangle is behind the orange text, and this is a bug. It's a very annoying bug. So let's go ahead and push the rectangle a little bit to the front. So every time I push it to the front, it jumps back to the original state. I don't know, even though I don't have a keys there. So anyway, I wanted to mention that for you. So now let's go ahead first, animate the black text before we create the third text. So after certain time, maybe after frame 100, let's say 110, I'm gonna set a key. So let's go to the transform. I'm gonna set a key on Y, and let's move it maybe 130 and move it back somewhere here and set a key. And let's see the timing, if it's okay or not. Nice. So I'm gonna apply some presets. So let's go ahead and select both keys. Let's go ahead and apply the back preset. This will give it nice anticipation at the beginning. So you can see we have nice anticipation. I think the animation is so fast, so let's go ahead and move the second key, maybe 5 frames. Nice. So now let's go ahead and create the next text. You can duplicate this text and remove the animations, but I found that when you are duplicating the text with animations, I get a lot of bugs. So I prefer to create new text if I have animations or keys on the text. So let's go ahead and create the text actor and place it there. So here is the text. So let's go ahead and bring it to the front so we can see it, and place it somewhere there. Let's go ahead and change the text. Let's call it Unreal Engine 5. And I like to scale it a little bit up. And I'm gonna change the font. We can leave it as that, or you can change it to, doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and change it to bold, impact. And let's move it to the back just a little bit. As you see, we have shadows, but if we change that to translucent, if we applied the gradient mask, the shadow is gone because now it's unlit, as you see. So now we're gonna animate the offset as usual. We're gonna make it right to left. And then let's see, at this time we're gonna animate it. So let's bring it back to 0. And then we're gonna set a key. And after a certain time, we're gonna make it 1 and set a key. And now let's see the timing. I think it's good. Nice. Let's go ahead and change the color maybe to dark blue. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. And again, we have the same issue. As you see, the rectangle jumps back to its original position. So in this lesson, I will show you how to fix it. So if you come to the transform, you can see I have the Y, right? Because I deleted the X and the Z. So in order to bring them back, we need to delete the animation entirely. So let's select the transform and delete it. And I'm gonna click on the plus and transform to bring them back. As you see, here is the location for X, Y, Z. So basically we're gonna fix it by setting a key on X. So this will prevent it from jumping back to its original position because there is a key on that. So let's go to the 3D view, and I'm gonna move it to the front. So I'm gonna move the X just to cover the orange text. So now I'm gonna set a key on it. So this key will prevent it from jumping back to its original position. So now we're gonna animate it again. So let's go again to the camera, and I'm gonna go to frame 75 because we animated that on 75. So we're gonna move it to the right. Let's go ahead and move it somewhere there and set a key on Y this time. And then we're gonna go to frame 97. It was on 97, and let's set the Y to 0 and set a key on Y. So this will fix the issue because there is a key there. So if you have this issue, just set a key on X1 key to lock it. So here we fix it. I know it's annoying, guys, but it is what it is. So in the next lesson we're gonna continue. Now let's go ahead and create black rectangle to mask the design UE5. So let's go ahead and create the rectangle, and I'm gonna bring it to the front to cover the text, and let's go ahead and change the color. Let's go to material, and I'm gonna set it black, and I'm gonna choose use unlit material. I don't want to cast any light, and I want to make it completely black. So let's go to the align and then click on stretch to stretch it to the safe area. And now let's go ahead and move it up and set a key. So after a few frames, let's say here, I'm gonna bring it to 0 and set a key on Z. I'm not gonna delete the keys on X because, as you remember, we talked about it, you need to set one key at least here to prevent the issue of jumping back. So now let's go ahead and play that and see the timing. Nice. So now let's go ahead and animate the design and UE5. I want to animate them after this moment. I want to push them down. So we need to animate each one individually. You could select them and create a group, but you may have some offset because we have two words animations. I prefer to animate them individually. So first we're gonna animate the UE5. So let's go ahead and expand that. We don't have any keys on Z, so I'm gonna set a key there. I'm gonna animate it on Z. So let's go ahead and move it a little bit and move it down somewhere here and set a key. And again, let's go ahead and move it down and set a key. So let's see if it matches the line. As you see, I set several keys. The reason is I want to make it look like that the rectangle is pushing the letters down. So now let's go ahead and animate the next one. Let's see, this is the design. So I'm gonna set a key. Let's zoom in using control and mouse scroll. So at this moment I'm gonna set a key. Let's go to Z. Let's move it down here and set a key on Z. So let's see if it matches together. As you see, they are not matching, so I'm gonna push it down more here. I want to match the line. Set a key. Nice, now it's matching. And here I'm gonna bring it back maybe and set a key. And here again back and set a key. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that. Nice. So in the next lesson we're gonna continue. Now let's go ahead and create the last text animation. Here in the scene you can see I have the real time. If I go ahead and play that back, let's go from the beginning. So you can see here the text is masked by the black rectangle, and after that I added this animation which hides each letter. So let's go ahead and do it. First of all, I'm gonna delete it and delete it from the motion design outliner. We're gonna create that from scratch. So at this frame I'm gonna create the text actor to match the position of the design, and let's go ahead and set the name real time and hit enter. As you see, we don't see the text because it's behind the rectangle, so let's go ahead and bring it to the front somewhere here, and let's go ahead and position it, and I'm gonna scale it and move it again to the left. So now let's go ahead to the style, and then I'm gonna change the translucency style to gradient mask, but this time we're gonna set it to custom, and here I can control the mask rotation. As you see, I'm gonna leave it at 0 because this is exactly what we want. And now if I go ahead and move the mask offset, you can see I can show the text. So we're gonna animate the mask offset. So let's go ahead and set a key on that, and after a few frames, let's go ahead and zoom in. Few frames, I'm gonna set the mask offset to 1 and set a key. Let's check the timing. So let's zoom in. Let's go ahead and move those keys to start them early. Let's go ahead and move it just 1 frame to the back. I think it's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and see the entire animation. Nice. And now we're gonna hide the letters. We can use the location animation. So let's go ahead and select the text, and let's go to layout, and I'm gonna enable the location. So let's go ahead and enable that, and after certain time, let's see, and maybe at frame 207 we're gonna animate them on Z. So let's go ahead and set the X to 0, and I'm gonna set the location to -100. And now if I go ahead and change the progress, you can see the letters moving down and they are masked out, and this is because we have already mask offset enabled. That's why the letters masked out, because we already have the mask. So now we can animate that. Let's set a key and go few frames and increase it to 100 and set a key. Let's see it. I think it's so fast, so let's go ahead and move the key. Nice. I think we're gonna increase the time a little bit more. I think it's fast. It's so slow now, so let's go ahead and move it a little bit back. Maybe a little bit more. Nice. So in the next lesson we're gonna continue. In this lesson I'll show you how to create this 3D text animation. So let's get started. So I'm gonna start with new level. So let's go ahead and create new level, and I'm gonna create empty one and hit create, and don't save, or let's save the selected. So let's go ahead to the motion design tab and let's click on motion design. I'm gonna create the lights and the cameras. So let's go ahead and click on spawn, and then I'm gonna create the text, and let's go ahead and call it texture. And I'm gonna change it to bold one, and let's go to layout and increase the space a little bit between them. And now if I go to style, if you come to the coloring style, I'm gonna use a texture. I want to apply just a texture on the text. So let's go ahead and import the texture, blob shapes. I'm gonna upload this one for you. So let's go ahead and assign it there. And here we have it. Let's go ahead and start piloting. And now I'm gonna extrude the text. So I can do that by going to geometry. And here you can see we have the extrude. So let's go ahead and extrude it back. As you see, we already have good UVs. Maybe 21. Nice. And you can apply a bevel too. So let's go ahead and increase the bevel. Maybe it's too much. So let's go ahead and set it to 1. And now let's go ahead and reset the position. And I'm gonna create the ground. So I'm gonna start with the rectangle. And let's go ahead and reset everything. And I'm gonna rotate it on Y. So let's go ahead and set it to -90. And I'm gonna scale it. Let's first lock everything and scale it up. And we're gonna duplicate this rectangle, so Control and D to duplicate it and rotate it again 90 degrees. Let's set this one to 0 and push it back a little bit. And here we have it. In the next lesson, we're gonna create the animation. Now let's go ahead and animate the letters. First of all, I'm gonna select the text and I'm gonna check off the unlit to make it cast shadows and lights. And then we're gonna use the layout scale to animate the letters. We're gonna scroll down to the scale and we're gonna enable the scale. And if I increase the scale progress, you can see we have the letters, but I wanna animate them on Z axis. So I'm gonna set the X to 0 and I'm gonna lock the Y. I'm gonna set it to 1. So now if I increase that, you can see we have the scale vertically. And I'm gonna decrease the scale range way up to 0. So now you can see we can control the scale on Z axis. We're gonna animate the scale progress and then we're gonna create the loop inside the sequencer. So let's go ahead first to frame 0 and set a key, and then after a few frames, let's say on 15, and let's increase it a little bit. And I want to increase it before the next letter appears here, as you see. So I'm gonna decrease it now just to hide the E letter, something like that. It's okay if it's shown a little bit, and then set a key. So let's take a look. So now we have the animation. And now let's go to the curve editor. Let's select that. And here I'm gonna set another key. Let's say before 4 frames, right click and click on add a key. So now we set a key here. So this will go up and down. Let's go ahead and see that. Go up, and here I'm gonna move it down. And at this key, as you see, the next letter is shown. So let's go ahead and move it down a little bit. Maybe you are asking why I don't split the letters and animate each one individually. You can do that, but I'm gonna show you this way to do it. It's faster. Of course, you can do that. You can create each letter separately and animate them separately too. So let's go ahead and goes down, and then we'll go up again. So let's go ahead and right click and set a key and move this one up. So here we have the simple animation for the first letter. So now we can simply right click on the curve, not on the point, and let's go to post infinity, and I'm gonna click on cycle with offset. So now if I hit play, you can see all the letters coming out. And now we can control the timing by changing the tangents a little bit to make it starts faster. And here we have it. As you see, it's easy to do it. And here we have the curve. And now we can animate the location too. So let's go ahead and increase the time here. So maybe at frame 170. Let's make some room here and increase it more. So at frame 170, I'm gonna animate the location. So let's check that on, and I'm gonna set a key here. And I'm gonna animate them on Z axis. So let's set this one maybe to 100. And let's check that. Maybe we need to set it to 200. Okay, great. So now let's go to frame maybe 200. And let's set this one to 100. And set a key. We can decrease the location range to 0. And here we have it. Let's increase the time a little bit more. As you see, using the cycle with offset, it saves us a lot of time. And as I said before, you can create each one separately and animate them separately too. But I want to show you this way to create it. It's not perfect because as you see, when the first letter comes out, the next shows a little bit, and that's fine. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. In this lesson, I want to address some issues related to the text UVs and the masking. So here I have two texts. So the difference is just the UVs between them. So if I go ahead and select the first text, and if I go to Material Designer, as you see, I applied just a texture on it. And now if I want to apply a mask on it, I can come over here and go to Gradient, and I'm gonna click on Linear Gradient. So now you can see I have a mask on each letter separately. And now in order to move the mask, we need first to break the UV between the texture and the opacity. So I'm gonna click on this icon. This will break it. So each one has its own UV's parameters. So now if I go to the offset and if I increase the offset, you can see I can mask the text, but the problem is each letter masked separately. And if I go ahead to the next text, let's go ahead and close that. Let's select it. And let's click on Material Designer to open it. And now I'm gonna apply again the same gradient to it, linear gradient, and I'm gonna break it. So now if I go ahead and increase the offset, you can see the entire text is masked. And let's go ahead and rotate that 90 degree. And if I move it, you can see now I can mask the entire text. So this is very important to understand because sometimes you want to mask the entire text, not each letter separately. So let's go ahead and see how to do it. Let's close this one. And let's go ahead and hide them. First of all, I'm gonna create a text. And let's go ahead and let's make it a little bit big. And I'm gonna reset the rotation and the location too. So now if I go ahead and click on Material Designer, as you see the scene is not updated. So let's close it and do it again. We can select that and go to Style and then change the coloring style to Custom Material. And from here we can click on Create with Material Designer. This will create the material on it. As you saw, the button didn't work. Anyway, so let's go ahead and apply the texture. Let's go ahead and see where is the texture. And let's select it and assign it there. And now if I go ahead there and change that to gradient and linear gradient, as you see we have the mask on each letter separately. And if I break that, and you can see that So in order to fix this issue, we need to create new UVs. But first of all, we need to convert the text shape into static mesh. So we can do that in the operator task, and let's go ahead and click on dynamic mesh converter. And let's go ahead and click on convert to static mesh asset. And we're gonna save it here. Let's call it mask text and save it. And now I'm gonna delete this one, or let's move it aside there. Now let's go ahead and import the mesh that we generated. Here is the mesh, and let's go ahead and place it there and reset the position and maybe scale it up a little bit. So this is the first step. The next step is we need to go to the modeling tab. Don't worry if you don't know anything about the modeling inside Unreal Engine. We're gonna cover that later in the course. So we're gonna do very simple steps. So first we're gonna go to UVs, and we need to project the UVs to create new UVs. But before I do that, you need to come over here and rotate it 90 degrees, because the project UVs will project the UVs on Z axis. That's why I rotated that 90 degrees. So now let's go ahead and click on project and click accept. And now if you go to the UV editor, let me adjust the window a little bit so you can see here we have the UVs. And now let's go ahead and close that. And now let's go ahead and apply the material to see if it's working. So let's select the text and click on material designer, and again we don't see anything. And even if you come over here, you can see we don't have the material tab. So we don't have the material slot. Even if I type material, you can see I don't have the material slot. We have just the overlay material. And if you double click on it to open the mesh, you can see I have 0 material slots. So maybe you are thinking if I click on plus, this will fix the issue, but it will not. So if I click on plus, and let's go ahead and save it. And now let's go ahead and apply the material. So select the text and the material, and now here we have the slot, right? So if I click on create material, and let's go ahead and apply the texture. So I will show you that creating the slot didn't fix the issue. So let's go ahead and select the texture and assign it there. So now you can see the problem is the texture is showing just on one letter. Maybe you are thinking it's because the UV. No, it's not. It's not because of the UVs. There are two ways to fix this issue. You can export the 3D mesh into other 3D applications like Blender or Maya and assign a material and then import the 3D mesh back. But because we have modeling tools inside Unreal, we can fix that there. So select the mesh first, and then we're gonna go to attributes, and here you can see we have the edit materials. So I'm gonna click on edit materials, and I'm gonna click on accept, and this fixed the issue. And now we can go to material designer, and then let's go ahead and apply a linear gradient, and let's go ahead and break the UVs. Let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees too. And now if I change that, you can see we have the masking works on the entire text. So I think this was a very important lecture. I wanted to mention these issues for you guys. So if you have any questions, let me know. We're gonna continue in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're gonna take a look at the spline sweep modifier. So as you see here, I have the animation. I created this animation using the curves and the sweep spline modifier. So let's go ahead and do it. First of all, I'm gonna create new level. So first of all, we're gonna switch to motion design, and let's click on motion design. And if you come to the actors, you can click on the spline actor. If you click again on the spline actor, this will place it in the scene instead of going and clicking there. Unfortunately, we can't click and draw the splines, so maybe they will update this feature in the future. So for now, you need to create the points manually. For example, if I want to create a point, I can right click there and click on add spline point here. So I added the point, as you see. And if you select the point and hold Alt and click and drag, you can create another point. So Alt, click and drag, Alt, click and drag, you're creating points. And you can delete the points by selecting the point and hit delete on the keyboard. And you can control the tangents from here too. So let's go ahead and delete this one. We're gonna create the U letter. So first I'm gonna create the lights. So now let's click on the spline and click again to place it there. And I'm gonna create a point here, right click and choose add point. And I'm gonna add another point, right click and choose point. So I have 4 points. So let's select both of them. Let's select the first one and control and next one, control and next one, and let's move it down. And I'm gonna adjust it a little bit to create the U letter. And I'm gonna move these points, control and select the next point and move them up. And I'm gonna adjust the tangent. I think I'm gonna move these points to the right and this one to the left. So here we have the U letter. So now we need to do another step. We need to create the profile. For example, you can create a circle, you can create a star, doesn't matter. So let's create a circle, holding shift to lock the ratio, and I'm gonna go to shape and let's set it maybe to 30. And now if I go to operator stack and go to add modifier, you can see we have the spline sweep. So here you can see we have the spline actor. So we need to select the spline. So you can click there and select the spline, or you can come over here and select it from here. Where is the spline? This is the spline. So let's select that. As you see, we created the mesh. As you see, they are not matching. And this is because we have transformations on the circle and the spline too. But in the spline, as you see, we have 0, 0. There is no need to reset it. Let's go to circle. And let's go to general. As you see, we have transformations. So if I reset that, now they are matching. And you can see we have low resolution, and this is because in the modifier we need to increase the steps. So this will add more triangles to the mesh. And you can come to lit and click on wireframe to see that. And here we have the progress offset. You can offset it. And you can create the animation from the progress start parameter. You can create the animation from the end, and you have the scale start and the scale end. You can control the end scale or the start scale. So let's go ahead and set it to 1. And here we have the cap. Basically this will create a geometry and fill the hole. And we have looped. This will connect the spline. So let's check it off. We don't need that. So now I'm gonna animate the shape, but before I do that, I like to go ahead and decrease the scale. Let's go to shape and maybe set it to 20. And now let's go to operator stack. We're gonna animate the progress end. So let's set it to 0, and at frame 0 I'm gonna set a key. So let's set a key here, and maybe after a few frames, maybe at 60, we're gonna change it later. So let's go ahead and move it way up to 1 and set a key. And here we have the animation. And it's a little bit fast, so let's go ahead and move it maybe to 80. So now we have the animation. So now we're gonna create the second layer. So we're gonna duplicate this one. Let's go ahead and hit Ctrl and D. And I'm gonna go to operator stack and delete the modifier, because if you choose the curve from here, I don't know, there is issue, it doesn't work. So let's delete it first, and again go to spline sweep, and we're gonna select again the curve, the same curve, and here is it. So let's go ahead and select the second spline and maybe set this one to 30, and we need to increase the steps to add more resolution. And now we need to animate the second modifier. So let's go again to operator stack, let's select it first, and I'm gonna animate it maybe after, let's say, 30 frames. So I'm gonna set the progress to 0 and set a key, and we're gonna go maybe to 110 and set this one way up to 1 and set a key. Let's change the color so we can see them better. So I'm gonna change the color for this one, the first circle. Let's go to material, we can change it from here or apply a material. Let's set it maybe to black and hit OK. And this one I'm gonna set it to blue, so let's select it and set it to blue and hit OK. Now let's create the third one. Again, the same process, we can duplicate it, and then in the operator stack I'm gonna delete this one and create new spline sweep, and we're gonna choose the curve. And again, we need to increase the steps to add more resolution, and we need to make it bigger. Before I make it bigger, let's go ahead and set it to white color so we can see it, and we can scale it from here. Let's go to shape and set this one maybe to 50. 50 is too much, maybe 40. So now let's go ahead and animate that too. We have an issue here. Let's go ahead and delete that from here. Let's go ahead and add it again. Let's select it and let's go to the end and set it to 0, set a key and move it somewhere here. And set it to 1 and set a key. So here we have the animation. Now let's go ahead and move them, maybe this one to the left and this one a little bit back. There is one issue with the spline sweep. For example, if you have very long curve, there is a limitation. So for example, if you select the circle or the shape, you can see I have the steps. So if you increase that, you can increase it just to 100. You can't increase it more than 100. So for example, 200, you can't do that. So if you have very long spline, you will have very low resolution, and this is not gonna work. Maybe in the future they will improve it. So you can do the spline sweep for simple curves. So you can do it for very long curves. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. Splines in Unreal Engine are very limited and not flexible like other 3D applications. Maybe it's new, maybe they will change it in the future. We don't know that. So if I go ahead and click on the spline and place it somewhere here, let's say you want to create a circle. It will be hard just to right click and creating points and adjusting them. So there are some hidden tools. So if you come and select any point, and if you right click on the point, if it's hard for you to click on the point, so just select the tool and right click on that, not on the curve, because you will get different options. So right click on the point and you can see I get different options. If I want to create a circle, for example, I need to come over here. You can see we have spline generation panel. So if you click on that, and you can see I get this small window, I can create a circle, arc, and so on. So if I click on circle, and if I go ahead and rotate the camera, so you can see here is the circle and it's connected to the line. I don't understand why it's hidden like that, why they don't set the tools here inside the actors. We don't know that. They may change that in the future, so I am not sure. So anyway, you need to create the spline and then right click in order to create the spline shapes, and this is really weird and silly. So anyway, so you can click on the arc. You can see I created the arc. A square, you can create the square, and it's really hard to create the square using just the spline actor and adding points. So you can create a rectangle, a line. As you see, the line is connected, so they are one piece. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna close this window, and then we're gonna select the points and delete them. So here you get the circle. Or let's go ahead and delete the entire shape. Or you can just create the spline and delete this point. Let's select it and delete it. It's really hard to work with the splines. So let's reset everything, hit F to frame it. I'm gonna select the select tool and then right click and choose spline generation panel. And now I can click on circle to create the circle or the square or line, rectangle. And here you have some options. For example, you can control the length or the width with the spline. So I think these options should be here, not in a hidden place that is difficult to find out. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. In this series of lessons, we will create this logo animation using splines. It's limited for now, it's not flexible like other 3D applications because it's new and it may be improved in the future. So this animation is created entirely in Unreal Engine 5.4 using motion design splines and modifiers. I didn't use any external softwares. The big advantage is everything here is in real time. There is no rendering, no waiting, and this could make it the best motion design software in the future. So let's get started. We're gonna start creating the splines. First of all, I'm gonna click on the motion design, and then let's go to actor and click on the spline actor and place it somewhere here. And I'm gonna reset the position. So let's go ahead and reset everything. And as I showed you, you can create a rectangle by selecting the point and right click and choose spline generation panel. And I'm gonna choose the square. And let's close it. And now we're gonna delete all these points. We have just one here. So let's go ahead and select the point and hit delete on the keyboard. So now we're gonna use the sweep modifier. So let's first create the profile. So let's create small rectangle. Let's go to shape and I'm gonna set it on X, maybe 2.5. Let's go ahead and click on free so we can change them separately. So this one 12. So it's very small rectangle. So now selecting the rectangle, make sure you select that. And let's go to operator stack and let's click on spline sweep and we're gonna choose this curve. So you can see they are not matching because we need to reset the position. Let's go ahead and see the rectangle position, general, and reset that. So now you can see we have low resolution, so we can go again to operator stack and increase the steps. We don't have any lights, so let's click on create defaults and click on spawn. Let's stop the piloting. And here we have it. And you can see we don't have sharp edges on it, so the shading needs a normal. So it looks very smooth. So notice what's gonna happen if we add the normal. So let's go to add modifier and click on normal. So you can see we get nice shading on it. We have few problems. For example, the first one you can see here, we don't have smooth curve and the geometry is intersecting. So if I go ahead to the wireframe, you can see the polygons are intersecting in this area, and if I go ahead here, you can see they are intersecting. I think I'm gonna decrease the camera speed so we can move slower. And here too we have another issue, that is we have open a curve. So if I go ahead to the elite, so let's see what is the problem area here. For example, you can see we have an issue here, and this is because we have overlapping points. Let's check. Let's select the point first and move it. So you can see they are not connected, and this is very easy to fix it. So let's select the curve. As you see, when I hit Ctrl and Z, this will still there, so that's not a problem. You can fix it just by moving the point a little bit, and here the scene is updated. So you want to close the loop. Let's select the curve and let's scroll down, and we're gonna choose closed loop, and this will merge them. But you see we have a problem again here, and we can fix this problem in several ways. For example, I can come over here. Let's first hide the rectangle. Let's select the point, right click on the point, and go ahead and choose linear, and here we fixed that. And now the other issue is, as you see, the geometries are intersecting. So basically we want to create another point here and smooth it manually. So what I mean by that, if I come over here and right click on that, let's select it first, right click and choose add spline, and here I'm gonna add spline point 2. So now if I select the rectangle, select the point, I need just to move this point inside a little bit. Let's disable the snapping. So move it inside. So you can see we fixed that issue. We have a nice curvature here. And we're gonna do the same for all corners. So let's go ahead, hide the rectangle. And let's go ahead and right click there, select it, right click and choose add spline, and here add spline point 2. So now let's go ahead and show it. And now if I move it, you can see we fixed that issue. And here again, we're gonna do the same process. Select the spline, right click, add spline point, add spline point. So selecting that and moving that inside, you can see we have 2 points because we closed the loop. So let's go ahead and hide that. We're gonna select both points. So holding Ctrl and Alt, selecting both of them. Let's go ahead and see that. Okay, it's selected, but it's not showing in the viewport that I selected them. So here we have it. Very easy to fix it. And now we can animate that. Let's select the rectangle. And now we can animate that. We can animate the progress end. You can move the position by going to the progress offset, and you can change the position from here. We're gonna set it to 0 and then set a key, and then maybe at frame 90 we're gonna set this one to 1 and set a key. And here we have the animation. It's fast, so that's why I told you we're gonna change it later. So let's go ahead and move it maybe to 180, and here we have it. I think it's a little bit fast too, so more. So here we have it. Let's see if we didn't fix this corner, so let's go ahead and fix that too. So let's select it, spline, hide that. We forget to add points there. Add point, add point, and let's select it and move it inside a little bit, and here we have it. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. Now let's go ahead and create the second curve. First, let's rename this to make everything nice and organized. So let's name it sweep 1, and this one let's name it curve 1. And now we're gonna create the second curve. So let's click on the spline and create it in the viewport. So let's go ahead. So let's go ahead and reset that. And I'm gonna select this point and I'm gonna move it there and move it slightly here. Let's take a look at it from the top view. Let's zoom in. And now I'm gonna select the point, hold Alt and move it down. So I'm gonna click on this one and right click and go ahead and choose the linear. Let's do it again. Let's do it for the next point. Right click and linear. And here we have it. Let's move it up a little bit. As you see, the pivot is there. So I think I'm gonna select this point too and move it there. Let's go ahead and move it somewhere here. So let's go ahead and smooth this angle. So let's go ahead and right click and choose add spline point here and another one here. And we're gonna move this one somewhere here. So again, we're gonna do the same thing. Again, spline. Where is the second spline? So let's select this one. As you see, I am avoiding scaling the spline. For example, if you scale it like that, you will get problems when you use the sweep. So try to avoid scaling. So just move the points. And move it here. And let's move the second one there. And I'm gonna hold Alt and move it somewhere here. And then I'm gonna right click here again and linear, and this one too, right click, linear. So let's go ahead and add points there. Add spline point. And again, right click, add spline point. Let's select this point and move it inside a little bit. So now we're gonna create the last rectangle in this area. We can duplicate this one, but the problem is I can't scale it. You could duplicate it and move the vertices, or we can do it from scratch, doesn't matter. So let's go ahead and duplicate that, Control and D, and move it somewhere here. And now I'm gonna select all these points. So holding Control and Alt, it's really difficult to select the points and this is really annoying. So I will select just this point, and then if I hold Control and Alt, now we selected that. So we're gonna move it there, and again Control and Alt and make a selection. Control and Alt and move it there. So let's move it a little bit to the left, and I'm gonna select all these points. Let's first select one point and then Control and Alt to select all the points and move them down. So select one point and then Control and Alt and select all these points and move it there. So here we have it. So in the next lesson, we're gonna create the sweep modifiers. Now let's go ahead and create the sweep modifier. So first of all, I'm gonna duplicate the geometry. This is the rectangle that we created, or we can create new one. Anyway, we can duplicate that. So let's go ahead and hit Control and D to duplicate it. And remember, you need to delete this one on the sequencer because we're gonna create new animation for that. So let's go ahead and select the sweep tool, and I'm gonna delete the spline sweep from here and the normal. The normal should be after the spline sweep. You can create new spline sweep and then rearrange them, or you can delete both of them. And I talked about that. I am deleting that because we could have some issues, so that's why I prefer to create new one. So let's go ahead and click on spline sweep, and I'm gonna increase the steps. So let's select the spline. So you can see they are not matching because we have values on the location. You can't hit the reset button because this will move the spline to this location, so we need to move the geometry to the spline location. So we can do that by copying the values there. So you can see we have two values. Right click here and choose copy, and then I'm gonna paste these values on the geometry here. So let's go ahead, right click and paste it, and now they are matching. And now we need to add the normal to fix the shading. So let's go ahead and click on normal, and here we fix it. If you have any issues with the edges or the polygons, remember to move the points around to fix it. So again, we're gonna do the same thing. Let's see if we have problem here. I think we have issue here, so let's go ahead and let's hide this one. Here we have 2 points overlapping. So if I select one of them and move it, let's show it first. And if I move it, and you can see we fixed that. So the same process, let's go ahead and select this one and hit Ctrl and D. And I'm gonna go to operator stack and delete everything. And then we're gonna add the spline modifier, increase the steps, and select the curve. And now again the same process, we're gonna copy these values on the curve, copy and paste it there to match it. Right click and click on paste, and we need the normal. And lastly, this one we're gonna again duplicate it. Let's go ahead, Ctrl and D, make sure you don't have anything here. So again, operator stack and delete everything, spline, and then steps, and let's select the spline here, and we're gonna copy the values from here. If you have rotations, you need to copy the rotations too. Because I have 0, 0, there is no need to copy them. So let's select this one, right click and choose paste. And again, we have the normal. So in the next lesson, we're gonna animate the sweep splines. Now let's go ahead and animate the sweeps. So we're gonna animate this one. So let's select it and let's go to frame 0. We're gonna offset that in any way. So let's go ahead and set the progress into 0 and key that. And let's go somewhere here and set it to 1 and key it. And here we have 2 animations. We're gonna offset it just a little bit. Maybe a little bit back. Let's zoom in, Control and using the mouse scroll to zoom in. So let's go ahead and animate this one. So let's go to frame 0, then we're gonna offset that. So let's set it to 0 and set a key. Let's make some room here. And let's set it to 1 and set a key. Of course, you can offset the animation from the progress offset. So you can see I can offset that. So let's go ahead and animate the last one. And again, let's set it to 0 and set a key. And let's go to maybe this frame and let's set it to 1 and set a key. And here we have the animation. And if you want to reverse that, you can animate the progress start if you want to make the motion in reverse. So now let's go ahead and offset them. maybe they are a little bit fast, so let's go ahead and increase the time. And here we have it. If you want to offset the start position, you can select this one and you can offset it from here if you wanted to. So now let's go ahead and create the ground. We can create the rectangle and position it at the ground, or you can go to mesh and click on plane and place it somewhere here. Let's go ahead and reset that, and we can scale it maybe 200 by 200 by 200, and I'm gonna move it down a little bit. And let's go ahead and assign a material. Because this is a static mesh, as you see, we don't see the simple color because this is static mesh. So you can click on material designer or click there to create the material. Create the material. Let's wait till the scene is updated. So let's go ahead and click on solid color and make it white. Now the scene is updated. So now we can hide the curves. So let's go ahead and hide them. And here we have the animation. Let's go ahead and hide the grid too. So another thing I want to do, I want to edit the material, and I want to click on unlit and change it to opaque because this is not a translucent. So let's close it. Let's see. Now the scene is updated. We change it to cast the shadows. And another step I like to do, I like to go to the light and rotate the light. Let's go ahead and rotate it till we get some nice shadows there. So here we have it. In the next lesson we're gonna continue. Now let's go ahead and create the text. So let's go ahead and see where is the tools. Click on motion design to open the tools, and then we're gonna click on text and place it here. Let's move it up, or let's reset everything so we can see it better. So here is the text. Let's go ahead and rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm gonna move it in front of the logo, and then we're gonna rotate it on X 90 degrees and move it down a little bit. So let's go ahead and change the text. Let's type Unreal, and I like to use the same font. Where is the impact font? This is the impact. So let's go to the layout, and I'm gonna increase the space a little bit and maybe move it to the left and down a little bit. And I like to create the outline. So let's see, let's go to geometry and click on outline. And I'm gonna increase the expand to increase the outline, and I'm gonna increase the extrude, something like that. So let's change the unlit. As you see, it's unlit, so we want to cast some shadows, and here we have it. I think I'm gonna decrease the size of it a little bit, just a little bit. Nice. And move it up. So now let's go ahead and animate that. So let's go to layout and open 3D character transform, and in the location let's check on the location. So I want to animate that on Y. So if I increase the progress, As you see, it's animated on Z, so let's set this one 0 and this one 100. Okay, no, we need to set minus 100 here and see. Okay, so we want to create the opposite of this animation, so we're gonna set that to opposite. Now the animation will start from the left like that. So let's see, at this time we're gonna set it to 100 and set a key, and then after a certain time let's set it to 0 and set a key, and let's see the speed. I think the speed is too much, so let's go ahead and increase it just a little bit and move it there. Let's check it. In the next lesson we're gonna animate the camera. Now let's go ahead and animate the camera. So first of all, make sure you unlock the camera so you can move it. So let's go to this position and select that, and let's go to maybe frame 0, and then I'm gonna set a key on the position and the rotation, and let's move somewhere there and move it, and let's set a key again. So we're gonna move it more maybe, so let's see, at this frame, let's click there to jump on the frame and then move it back and set a key again. Let's see. I like to increase the lighting intensity, so let's go ahead and select the direction light and maybe set the intensity to 3. And here we have the animation. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know. Using 3D models in motion graphics is very common, especially if you are designing 3D motion graphics. So instead of creating 3D models outside Unreal Engine, we're gonna use 3D modeling tools inside Unreal Engine 5. So in this section you will learn how to use 3D modeling tools inside Unreal Engine 5. So instead of jumping back and forth between other 3D softwares, I like to keep everything inside Unreal Engine, and we have everything we need. So let's get started. Before we dive into 3D modeling in Unreal Engine, I want to mention just one important step to do to avoid any issues. So you can see I opened the motion design windows, right? And now if I go to modeling, and everything works fine. For example, I can place the cylinder and everything works fine till now. I'm gonna hit accept. I found one issue till now. So if you go to the model, if you click on poly group edit, let's say I want to delete this face. If I hit delete, you can see here the accept button is grayed out. So this is a bug. So in order to avoid that, let's go ahead and cancel it. In order to avoid it, just click on motion design to close the motion design windows and click yes. And now if I go ahead and place the cylinder, let's say, and now if I go to model, let's accept it first, model, poly group edit, and now if I delete the face, you can see the accept button is active now and I can hit accept. So I found this issue, so I wanted to mention that for you before you dive into 3D modeling. And after you finish your 3D model, you can go back again and click on motion design to open the windows. So see you in the next lesson. Before we start modeling anything, we need to go to the modeling tab. If you don't see it here, you need to go to plugins and load it from here. You can see on the left we have tabs. Each one has its own tools and options. We have the create tab. You can create shapes like box, spheres. We're gonna cover everything later. We have the X-form, like the transform to move the shapes, and duplicate to duplicate the objects, split button to split the shapes to multiple shapes. We have the pattern to align the shapes in circle path or line or grid. Here we have the deform tab. If you are coming from Blender or Maya, you may have seen these types of deformers. You can bend and twist the shapes. You can smooth the polygons. If you have noisy surfaces, you can displace the polygons by adding noise deformers on objects. You can sculpt the mesh. We're gonna cover everything. Here you can edit the poly groups, like extruding multiple triangles together, applying Boolean operation on the mesh, like subtracting one mesh from another one. In the mesh tab, you will find everything about editing the triangles, like selecting the vertices, faces and edges. You can extrude the triangles, move them, weld, delete, flip, offset, and so on. We have the voxel tab. You can work with volumes. It has very limited options like merging and offset. For those who don't know what voxel is, basically it's a volume unit. When you have a volume like a box volume, the box is divided to small boxes, so each box called voxel. And this is a common term in visual effects and effects softwares like Houdini and Maya Flutes. We have the bake tab. Here you can bake textures like ambient occlusion, vertex color, and curvature. You can inspect your geometry like finding the UV seams and boundary edges and so on. Here you can see we have the UV tab. You can create and unwrap UVs. Here we have an attributes tab. It contains tools like preparing the mesh for collision and generating polygroups. Finally, we have the MISC tab. It has some tools like converting the mesh to a volume and so on. Now let's go ahead to the Create tab, and I'm gonna click on the box. And now I can move the cursor to the viewport and place the box where I want. And notice here we have the create box. It's asking you to accept that or cancel that. And here you can see we have a small window. This is the transformation, so I can move it or rotate it. And notice when I hit the accept button, Unreal will create a folder for you and create the asset inside it. And if I go ahead and create another object, let's say torus, and place it there and hit accept, as you see, this is creating another asset in that folder. If you want to create them in a specific path, you can just delete this one. The menu is outside of the recording area, so let me move that up so you can see it. Right click and delete it, and force delete. And now I can come over here and click on new folder, and let's call it assets. And now we need to do another step. I need to come to the new asset location and click on that and change that to a current folder. And now if I select the folder and go ahead to the box and click and accept, as you see it's there. Click and accept, now it's there. And as you see, when you create the shapes inside Unreal Engine, each shape you create that, it converts that to an asset. Let's say you are modeling something and you don't want every time you click somewhere or create an object, it converting that to an asset and placing that in the content browser. You may need to work and finish your 3D model and then save it as an asset. And this is very annoying when it comes to modeling. So every time you create something, it comes to the asset folder. So instead of doing that, let's go ahead and delete them. And now let's go ahead and delete this one too. Delete them. And now if I go to the box and click there, before I click on accept, you need to go to the output type and change that to dynamic mesh. And now if I accept that, as you see, nothing saved here. And I can go ahead and click there, nothing saved here. After you finish your 3D model, you can select all the objects and go to the X form and click on convert. And now I'm gonna set the output type to a static mesh and hit accept. Now Unreal saves that in the asset folder. In the next lesson we're gonna continue. Before we continue and using the modeling tools inside Unreal Engine, you need to understand key concepts. When it comes to creating 3D models or selecting triangles, faces or polygons inside Unreal Engine, it's a little bit different from other 3D applications. Unreal Engine render all models as triangulated meshes. When you import or create a mesh, it's automatically broken up into triangles. The reason is Unreal Engine can't import a model that it can't render. Unreal Engine rendering is portable across all platforms, as all graphic drivers recognize triangles. Unreal Engine doesn't like to spend time and resources resolving quads and n-gons into triangles at runtime. That's why it converts all the meshes into triangles. So there is no concept of quad or n-gon, but it does support polygroups, and it's what I'm gonna explain in this lecture. Polygroups are a collection of triangles. If you group few triangles together, then you get a polygroup. And when you want to edit the polygroup, like moving or rotating, you need to use polygroups tools. And when you want to edit the triangles, you need to use the triangles tools. So let's go ahead and see in details how it works. Here in the scene I have 3 boxes. They are similar, but if I go ahead and change that to wireframe, as you see I added subdivision to the second and to the third one. If I want to edit the triangles, to move them or rotate them or scale them, I need to go to the mesh and select that, and let's make some room here so we can see the buttons better. So if you click on triangle edit, now you can select the triangle, you can hold shift and select the other one, and then you can move them, rotate them or scale them. Let's undo that, and you can select the vertices too. If you click on the vertex, you can select that, you can move it, and you can select the edge, you can rotate and move it too. If you want to disable the face selection, as you see sometimes it's annoying when it comes to selecting the vertices and accidentally you select the edge or the face. So if you come to the selection filter, you can turn off the edge and the face, so now you can just select the vertices. And then if you turn that off, you can't select anything. You can turn on the faces, just you can select the triangles. And the same is for the other object. You can click on cancel or hit escape on the keyboard to exit the triangle edit mode. And let's go ahead, escape again. And now I select the second one. Again, you can go to triangle edit and you can select the faces or the vertices. So let's go ahead and hit cancel. And now if I go to the model, you can see we have the polygroup edit. It's inactive because we need to select the object. So now if I click on polygroup edit, you can see although I have the triangle here, but I can't select the triangle. I can just select the face. So basically this is a polygroup. So now if I move, as you see, I am moving both triangles together. And again for this face and this one too. But if I go ahead to the second box and click again on polygroup, and you can see when I hover the mouse over it, it selects the entire face, and I can't select the quads on the mesh. And even if I click there, as you see, I can't select the quads. I can select the entire face, and this is because it's one polygroup. And let's hit escape again on the keyboard. And the third one, if I go ahead and click on polygroup edit, as you see, I can select this part or this part. The reason is because I created this poly group manually. I'm gonna show you how to do that in a moment. So let's go ahead and cancel that, and let's go ahead and delete everything. Select everything and delete them. If I go to create and click on box and place the box here, and as you see I have just one face or two triangles, and this is because of the subdivision there. So we have the width, so we can set that to 2 by 2 by 2. And now if I hit accept and go again to model and click on poly group edit, you can see it's one face, and these poly groups generated automatically for you. Let's hit accept. We can generate our own poly groups. So if you come to the attributes, you can see here we have generate poly groups and we have paint poly groups. You can paint or you can generate them automatically. So if I click on generate poly groups, if I reset that because I set that to quads, so as you see the conversion mode is face normal. So each face facing the normal, Unreal gives it a unique poly group. So if I go ahead and change that to find quads, Unreal Engine will find all the quads on the mesh and assign a unique poly group to each of them. So now if I hit accept, and now if I go back and click on poly group edit, and you can see now I have poly groups. Let's go ahead and create another box and place it there, and let's increase the subdivision maybe to 6 by 6 by 6 and hit accept. And now we're gonna go to attributes and I'm gonna click on paint poly groups. So let's go ahead and select these faces. Maybe it's not visible, so let's go to unlit, so you can see we can see the color of the poly groups. And I need to remove these triangles. Holding shift and click on that, we remove it. Or let's go ahead and undo that and click there. As you see, I am selecting by mistake this face, so let's go ahead and make the brush size lower and click there. So now I created one poly group, and if I hit accept, and now if I go to model poly group edit, you can see it's one poly group, and I can move, rotate that or extrude it if I wanted to. So in the next lesson we're gonna continue. If I go ahead and create something in the viewport, let's say we're gonna create an arrow, and you can see we don't have any options in the details, but we can change some attributes from here. But if I place that, and you can see I get the transformation for the move and for the rotation, I still don't see anything in the details. Let's set this one to 100 by 100. And now if I go ahead and accept that, you can see here we have 100 by 100. And if I go ahead again, let's go ahead and delete that. And let's go ahead and create that again, place it there. You can see here we have the option delta mode. Let's say you want to move the object 20 unit on X. So as you see, it's difficult here to calculate that. So you can come over here and set plus 20, and this will move it 20 units. Let's set it again, plus 20, and enter. You can see I moved it 20 units on X. There is another option. We can come over here. You can see written delta mode. So if I check that on, now the transformation is 0, 0. So now you can just type 20 unit and this will move it 20 units, and you can click on reset button. This will turn this to 0. So now again I can set any number I want, 0. So this is very useful if you want to move the object precisely. So you can use the delta mode, or you can add using the plus button. And now let's go ahead and see how to edit the pivot. So let's go ahead and click cancel on that, and we're gonna click on that again. And if I place the object in the viewport, you can see the pivot is at the bottom of the object, and you can change that from here. If you come to the positioning, you can see we have the pivot location, and it's set to base. I can set that to centered. This will move the pivot to the center, and we can set that to top. Let's go ahead and set that back to base and hit accept. If you go to the Xform, you can see we have the transform node. So if I click on that, I get the same options for the transformation and rotation plus the scale too. And now if I want to move the pivot, I can come over here and check on the set pivot mode. And now I can move that and rotate it. And then if I check that off, I can now move the object. Now the pivot is at the center. But if I go ahead and set to complete, the pivot is snapping back to the base. So let's say you want to move the pivot permanently on the center. You can use the edit pivot button. So if I click on that, and now if I move that there and click accept, now as you see it's there. So in the transform, when you click on set pivot mode, you can move it and play with the object, rotation or transformation. And after you hit complete, this will snap back to the original position. But if you want to permanently move it, you can come to the edit pivot and move it there. And now if I hit accept, it's there. So let's reset everything. We can just delete this one and create the object again, arrow, and position that and accept that. If I go again to Xform and click on the edit pivot, you can see we have some presets for us. For example, I can click on the center. This will center the pivot at the center of the object, and bottom, top, left, right, back, front, world, origin. This is the 0, 0, 0. And notice if I rotate that, before I rotate that, let's go ahead and accept that. If I go ahead and rotate the arrow, something like that, and now click on complete and go back again to edit pivot, if I click on the top, Unreal knows that this is the top of the arrow, and if I click on back or I click on bottom, as you see, Unreal knows that this is the bottom of the arrow. But if you click on the use word box and click on the bottom, Unreal will consider the bottom of the word space is the bottom, and if I click on the top, as you see, the top is here. So this is just switching between the word space and local space in case you want to change it, and hit accept. Now let's go ahead and cover the shapes in details. Let's go ahead first cover the box. So let's click there, and if I go up, you can see the output type is set to dynamic mesh. By default, when you use the modeling tools inside Unreal Engine, this should be the static mesh. So each time you create a shape, you need to come over here and change that to dynamic mesh. But if you want to set the option dynamic mesh by default, you can come over here to the gear button, click on that, and then go to new mesh settings and change it to dynamic mesh actor. After you change it, you need to restart Unreal Engine. So now each time you create a shape, the output type will be by default dynamic mesh. So it's very useful. Not every time you create a shape you need to go to output type and change it to dynamic mesh. We have the width, we talked about that. We have the width subdivision, and we have the depth, and here we have the polygroup mode. So by default it's set to per face. So basically this will create a polygroup based on the shape normals. So each face will have one polygroup. But if you change that to per shape, the entire shape will have one polygroup. So if I click on that, and if I go to model and polygroup edit, you can see it's one polygroup and I can't select the faces. And if I go ahead and cancel that, let's go ahead again to the box and create another one. And if I change that to per quad, and now Unreal Engine will create a polygroup for each face. So if I hit accept and go again to model, polygroup edit, you can see I can select any face I want. And this is a very useful option if you want to do modeling. So, and here we have the target surface. It's set to on scene. So if you create another box, as you see, when I move my mouse over the last box, it snaps over it. So I can create that over it. Or you can change that to ground plane. Now when you create the box, this will ignore the other objects. So as you see, it sticks to the ground. And we have the show gizmo. Let's go and set that back on scene. And we have the align to normal. This will align the object to the normal of the shape you want to snap on. And here we have the material. We can assign the material. Let's go ahead and type wood. And we're gonna choose this one. And here you can change the UV scale. Let's go ahead and disable the show wireframe. And now if I go ahead and increase the size of the box, let's go ahead and move this one too. So as you see, the UVs are scaling with the object. But if you go ahead and check that on, the world space UV scale on, so now if I change the scale, you can see we have consistent UV scale. But after you hit the accept button, if you scale it, this will scale the UVs again. So you need to scale the shape from the width, depth, and the height in order to work with the world space UV scale. And we're gonna create the sphere. We have similar options except for the shape details. We have the radius, we have the subdivision type. So if I go ahead to the wireframe and change the box to last long, you can see it's completely different subdivision. And here you can control the division too. And the remaining options are similar to the box. And even if you click on the cylinder, as you see, they are all similar except for this part. And we have the torus, and we have the cone. So as you see, everything is similar to the other shapes. And here we have the rectangle and the disc and the stairs. I will leave that to you to explore it. So in the next lesson, we're gonna take a look at the other options. In this lesson, we're gonna take a look at the cube grid. So basically, this tool will allow you to create blockout meshes. This is very useful when it comes to level design. So let's click on that. As you see, we have a grid. This is just a visualization or a guide for us. So if I select and drag, I can make a selection. And if you come over here, if you click on the pull, you can create meshes. Or you can hit E on the keyboard. If you click on the push, this will subtract the mesh from it. Pull will add the mesh. So you can hit E on the keyboard to add mesh. And if you hit Q, this will subtract or remove a mesh. and let's go ahead, and if I select some blocks here, and if I hit Q or click on push, this will remove the boxes. As you see, will make a hole. And you can come over here and make a selection. After you make a selection, if you click on the corner mode, this will create 4 points for you. So now if you select just 1 point or 2, and if you hit E on the keyboard, you can see you can create a slope. And let's go ahead and hit accept. And now if I deselect that and go back again to cube grid and make a selection, let's say, and now if I hit Q on the keyboard, as you see, nothing happens. And if I hit E, this will add more geometry. And if I hit accept, as you see, it's separate geometry. We created separate geometry. But if you select that and click on the cube grid, and now if I make the selection and hit Q, as you see, I am removing or adding geometry on it. And if I hit accept, this will be just one mesh. So when you select that and click on cube grid, you are going to add the mesh on that. If you deselect that, you will create separate geometry. So let's go ahead and click on the cube again and make a selection. And if I hit E maybe a few times, and if I come over here and click on slide back maybe 1-2 times, you can see I created a space. And now if I hit E, I can create another layer with gap between them. So again, slide and E, you can create a gap between them. And you can select this line. And now if I hit Q, we'll subtract the mesh. If I hit E, this will add geometries based on the normals. And now if I hit accept, this is one mesh. And again, cube, let's select those faces and hit E and hit accept. And now let's go back there. Let's say I want to create a mesh aligned to the slope, and if I select that and go to cube grid, as you see, it's hard to align the selection to the curvature of the mesh. So in this case, we need to move the grid there. So if I hold Control and click somewhere here, you can see I moved the grid there. And if you hit R on the keyboard, you can hide the manipulator, as you see. Hit R again to show it again. So after doing that, I need to rotate it. So remember, you hold Control and middle mouse click to snap it. So let's move it there and just align it to the mesh. Let's see it from here. So now I can come over here and hit E. Now the mesh is aligned to the slope. And if you want to reset the grid location, you can come over here and click on reset and reset. And here you can control the block size. So if I decrease that maybe to 20, you can see we have a small grid. And the grid power is just the power of the block size. So if you set that to 6, this will be 200. It's just the power of the block size. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. Now let's go ahead and apply some of what we learned on a practical example. We're gonna create this 3D barrel. So let's do it. I'm gonna start creating a cylinder. So let's go ahead to cylinder and let's go ahead and reset everything. And I'm gonna place the cylinder there, and let's set the XYZ to 0 to 0 to center it on the 0 0 0. So before I click accept, I need to come to the height, and I'm gonna change this one to maybe 70 and this one to about 30. We can change the height, let's set it to 80. let's go ahead to the wireframe, and I'm gonna set the radial slices to 12. It's 16, so let's set that to 12. Now we have 12 sides. And for the height subdivision, I'm gonna set that 3. And then I think this is all what we need for now. So let's go ahead and click on accept. So now if I go ahead to the model, and if I click on polygroup, so you can see I can select the loops, right? But I want to select it vertically. So if you go to the attributes, and if you go to generate polygroups, and if I set that to face normal deviation, basically this will create a polygroup for the faces that facing their normal. So now if I hit accept, and if I go back to the model and click on polygroup, so you can see now I can select those. And maybe you didn't see that in the wireframe, so let's go to unlit and do it again. Let's click on generate polygroup, so you can see we have different color for each face. So let's go back to the model, and I'm gonna click on the polygroup, and first of all I'm gonna delete this face. Let's delete this one, and I'm gonna delete the bottom one too. And now I'm gonna select the vertices. So here I can filter them. So if you click just on the vertex, and now if I select, I can select just the vertices. And now I'm gonna scale it. So let's go ahead and scale it down. I see we have an issue. So the entire vertices are scaled with it. So this is because of the polygroups. So that's not a problem. We can fix that by going to the mesh, and I'm gonna click on triangle edit. So now I can edit the triangles, but we're gonna use the triangle edit to scale the vertices. So now if I scale them, so you can see the other vertices are not affected. And let's go ahead and do that to the bottom too. So let's go ahead and scale it down just a little bit. And for these vertices, I'm gonna move it up like that, and those I'm gonna move them down, something like that. So now let's go ahead and hit accept, and you will notice we don't see the inside of the mesh because we need to create the material. So let's go ahead and create a material. Let's call it M barrel. Let's dive inside. I'm gonna hit 3 and click somewhere to create the color, and let's set it to white. Hit accept, save. Before we hit the save, we need to go ahead and check on two-sided, and now save it. And now let's go ahead and apply it there. And now the problem is the 3D model is looking very flat. So if I go to lit, as you see we don't have any light. So let's go ahead and create the lights too. So you can go to window and then click on environment light mixer. This is the easiest way to create the lights. We're gonna click on create skylight, atmospheric, and sky atmospheric, and here we have the light. Very easy. I like to move the icons far away, or you can hit G on the keyboard, but the problem when I hit the G, the manipulator is gone too. So let's go ahead and select them and move it aside. Maybe let's set this one to 5000 to move it away from the viewport, and this one to 5000 because I don't want to see it, and this one to 5000 too. So now I want to go again to model and polygroup, and let's go ahead and select the face. So I'm gonna select the first face, and I wanna disconnect that. So if you select that and come over here, if you click on disconnect, now the face is separated. The reason is I am going to separate them because I wanna extrude them. So let's go ahead and select the next one, disconnect. Unfortunately, you can't select everything and disconnect it because it will not work, so you need to select them each one. So disconnect, disconnect, and disconnect, disconnect, disconnect. Let's see, we need to disconnect this one too, disconnect, and here we have them. So now I can select all of them, all the faces. As you see, the priority is for the selection of the vertices, so let's go ahead and click on that and on the edge. And now if I select, I can select just the faces or the poly groups. And now you can extrude them, or you can click on push pull. So the difference is when you click on the push and pull, if you want to extrude them inside, this is not gonna work. So as you see, it's turning red. Basically it's cutting the surfaces. But if you want to extrude them inside, you need to click on extrude. So now you can see you can extrude them inside. But I'm gonna use the push pull because I want to extrude them outside. I'm gonna reset everything. So as you see, when I extrude them, we have some gap between them. I don't want that, so I can come over here and click on vertex normal. So now as you see, they are stick together, but they are separated. So let's go ahead and extrude them something like this thickness. Or you can come over here and change that to fixed, and you can type the number here if you wanted to, and click on accept. And now I like to go ahead and select the vertices there. We need to turn on the selection filter. So if I go to the left view, so as you see, they are not on the same level. So that's why I want to scale them on Z to match the vertices. So now they are on the same level. Let's go back to perspective, and we can do that for the bottom area too. Let's go ahead to left maybe, and we need to scale it. Now it's flat. So let's go to perspective, hit accept. And now if I go again to polygroup and select everything, let's go ahead again, we need to select just the faces. And now if I click on bevel and go ahead and change that, let's see, I don't know why we don't see the result. Let's do it again. Maybe select them, select everything, and click again on bevel, faces. Let's go ahead and select the edges. Everything, and click on bevel again, bevel edge. And now it's working. It should work on the faces too, but I don't know. Maybe we have some issues because I tried that before and it worked. Okay, great. And hit accept. So now let's go ahead and create the rings. We can create that by creating a torus, place it somewhere there, and you can control the radius from here. Let's set that to 0, 0 by 0 and move it up. Increase the radius. Let's set the minor radius to 2, and the division, I'm gonna set that to 12 because we have 12 sides, as you remember when we created the barrel. And for the sides, you can set that to 6 or 4, doesn't matter. And now we can just control the radius to match the radius of the barrel. Let's set that to 40, maybe 37, right? And move it up. And now we can duplicate that. Before I duplicate that, I wanna make it flat from the side. So let's go ahead and select the polygroup, and maybe we can go to the left and select all those vertices. Let's go ahead and select just the vertex. So let's select them all. And now in the perspective, I can scale them down a little bit just to make it flat. It's up to you, you can leave it like that too. Nice. And now we can duplicate that holding Alt and move it down. And now we can go to create and click on disk. Let's place it somewhere there and move it up. Let's set this one to 0 by 0. And let's go ahead and decrease the radius, maybe 30. After hitting accept, you need to hold Alt to duplicate that. Let's see. And move it down. We don't see the face because we need to apply this material on it. We need to go ahead and apply it from here, apply it on this one. Let's go ahead and apply it on this one, and let's bring that back there to 0. Let's create the cap here. We can create a cylinder and place it on top of that. And let's go ahead and set the radius maybe to 8, and this one maybe to 10, 3, and let's set the radius maybe to 4 and decrease the height maybe 1.5. Hit accept. Let's move it aside a little bit. I downloaded few materials from Megascans, so you can see we have the metal. Let's drag and drop it there, and we have the wood. You can go to add and click on add Quixel content. You can download it from here. You can just type wood. You can click on surface and type here wood, and you can choose any material you want. After you choose the material, you need to click on download, and after the download finished, you need to click on add, and this will create the folder of the Megascan for you. So let's see, drag it there and drag the metal here too. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. After you finish your 3D model, you may want to export that as OBJ or FBX. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. First of all, we need to select everything. I'm gonna hold Ctrl and Alt on the keyboard and drag a selection to select everything. So now I'm gonna go to transform, and then I'm gonna click on merge. So then I'm gonna click on accept. Now we have one object, as you see. I think we didn't select the disk here, so it's okay. We're gonna select both of them, the first one and control the second one, and then merge again, accept. Now they are one object. So now we need to convert that. As you remember, we talked about that. We're gonna convert that to a static mesh, and the asset location is the current folder. So I'm gonna click on accept. So now it's here. So now in order to export that, you need just right click on that and then go to Asset Actions and then Export. And here you can choose the format you want to export. I'm gonna set that to FBX. You can export that as OBJ2. So let's go ahead and type barrel final and then hit save, and then let's click on export. So now your homework is to create this 3D model. You don't have to follow me exactly, you can create it a little bit different than mine. After you finish it, just take a screenshot using the snipping tool in Windows and then post it in the discussions so I can see it. So in the next lesson we're gonna continue. Let's continue and take a look at the extrude polygon tool. So basically this tool allows you to create custom shapes. So when you click on that, you get a grid. This will be as a guide for you. So I can click somewhere and then create any shape I want. After you finish creating the shape, as you see now, we can extrude that. I can set the extrusion manually using my mouse, or I can come over here and change that to fixed. Let's set it maybe to 50. And now if I click, and now this will set automatically to 50, or you can change it to flat. So this will create a flat polygon for you. After that, you can extrude that. If I go ahead and reset that, if I create again another shape, if I cross the line, as you see, we get a cross point here. So if I click there, Unreal will delete the extra lines for you. If you don't want that, you can click on self intersections, turn it on, and now if I click, as you see, the line is not finished. You need to close it in order to finish the shape, and now you can extrude it. It's up to you if you want to use it or not. If the gizmo is distracting you, you can click there to hide it, or you can play with the gizmo, rotate it, and then draw on it. Let's reset it. Where is the reset rotation? I think we should be able to reset that, but it seems we can't do that here. Anyway, we can just set it to 0 from here. You can set the values to 0 by 0. The other one is the circle. So you can create a circle shape. Let's move the camera a little bit away, and you can extrude the shape of the circle. You can create a square, and you can create a rectangle, and we have the rounded rectangle too. And by the way, if you want to know the distance, you can see here in the distance we have the distance from the last point. Before you extrude that, you need to come to the radial slice if you want to increase the slices. So if I go ahead and show the wireframe, you can see here we have a lot of polygons. So I can come over here and decrease it maybe to 8. So you can see we get less polygons. And you can increase the size ratio too to make it rounded. And lastly, we have the ring. Let's go ahead and select the ring. So before you click on the extrusion, you need to come to the polygon tab and change the shape if you wanted to, because after you create the shape and click on the extrude, you can't change it anymore. So before hitting the extrude, you need to come here and change it. And hit complete. So in the next lesson, we're gonna continue. Before we continue, I like to talk about the mirror tool because we're gonna use it a lot, so it's important to understand it. So if I go ahead and click, let's say, on the stairs, and let's say I want to mirror it on X. So let's go ahead and hit accept, and I'm gonna click on the reset to set the position at 0, 0, 0. And if I go there to the left, so I like to mirror it on X, right? So if I go to the model, you can click on mirror to mirror the stairs. And if you want to mirror it on X, you need to click on forward, because if you go to the perspective, you can see it's mirroring on Y. So if I want to mirror it on X, I can click on forward. This will mirror it on positive X. And now if I hit accept, and if I go to the wireframe, you can see everything is fine. And if I go to lit and select the poly group, and if I select the vertex and move it, you can see the vertices are not welded. And this is because if you go to the mirror, let's go ahead and undo that and click on mirror, and this is because the plane tolerance is set to 0. This will prevent the vertices from welding. So if I move that up, and now if I go ahead and click on forward and hit accept, and let's go to poly group and select the vertex, and you see the vertices welded. But if I go ahead and undo that again, I want to show you another thing. If I select the vertex here and move it a little bit back, and now if I hit accept and go to a mirror and forward, and you can see they are not welded. So this is important to understand. So in order to fix this issue, let's go ahead and undo that. I need to go to the left. Let's see, where is that vertex? It's there. So I need to go to the poly group and select the vertices. You can see it's there. So I need to select that and move it close to the other vertices, or you can select everything like that and click there and scale it. So as you see, they are aligned using the scale. So now if I hit accept and then go to perspective, let's see, we need to align it again. Let's go back again to left and select that. So hit accept, and now we can mirror it. We can click on mirror and forward, and now if I hit accept, you can see we have no issues. So let's select the vertex and see if everything okay. As you see, we don't have double vertices there, and even if I check that there, you can see works fine. So it's important to align the vertices before you mirror the 3D model. And another thing, let's go ahead and undo that. So if I go ahead to the left again and move this stair there, so let's say you want to mirror the 3D model on Z axis, and if I go to a mirror and click forward, you can see it's mirroring based on the closest point on the object. So you can move the plane, you can click and move the plane. You can see this white line, this is the plane. So if you want to mirror that exactly at the center, you can come over here and set the X to 0, and now it's exactly mirrored on a Z. But because we have the gap, the vertices are not welded. So you can come over here and move this one very close. You must move the vertices very close to the line, and you can cross that too if you wanted to. So now if I click on mirror and set this one to 0 and click forward, let's set it back again to 0, you can see the mirror works. So even though the vertices are crossing the line there, and this is because the crop long mirror, so basically this option will cut everything crossing the line. So if I go ahead and cancel that and click on mirror again and turn that off and set that to forward, and if I set this one to 0 and hit accept, and if I go to perspective and select the vertices, you can see we have a problem, right? That's why I told you you need to click on mirror and make sure the crop along mirror is checked on. So basically this will cut everything that is on the other side. So now if I hit accept and then select that, you can see we don't have any issue. I hope you understood the mirror tool. If you have any questions, let me know in the discussions. I did this video because I thought it's important to understand the mirror tool before we move on. In any way, if you have any question, let me know. In the next lesson, we're gonna start.